What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday morning to all of you, and welcome to the Monday Market Update. My name is Sean Grapevine. I am a co-branch manager of one of the Atlanta UMortgage branches, and I am joined here, as with every week, by the man, the myth, the legend, the man whose New Year's resolution was to have a record lock week 2 weeks in a row, and you all gave it to him. He likes his Philly with extra cheddar. He does best efforts with no effort. His GPA at the University of Texas was equal to today's 10-year T-note. He's the Titan of the 10-year. He's the Baron of Bips. He's the Lord of the Locks. It's Austin Koenig.
Thanks, Sean, and great dismount with the proper German enunciation. There we go.
I know there's an implied umlaut there. I know it's not in the Americanized version, but I know it's hiding in there in your past.
Yeah, umlaut gang. Let's make sure to pay our respects to Sean here. That's awesome.
Welcome, Austin. What news have you from last week?
I think last week was an interesting week just from the kind of movement we saw. Right, we saw rates really kind of start to drift down to start the week, and as we ended the week, we had a drift up. Kind of what we saw. Right, so. I don't think there's really any major data points to talk about other than this is just the market's moving and repositioning. We all know a lot of people take vacation in December, and there's a lot of quiet weeks we had. We've now kind of started to get more market activity, and I think this is just a symptom of that. Is there can be moves going back and forth. I think this week we have a little bit of subset of data that we can definitely focus on. I know we talked a little bit. We have PCE coming on at the end of the week. Really not too much to start the week, to be perfectly honest with you. But we have the PCE data, which is another inflation measure we can use to supplement what the Fed is doing, and it kind of helps another data point for the market to digest really at the end of the day. So that's some major stuff that we'll see come in at the end of the week. And the Fed's not really going to be talking that much because they kind of like a blackout period of what they can say right before their Fed meeting that happens on February 1st. I think whatever that Wednesday is, they're releasing their rate decision.
I think it's the 31st and 1st.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll see, where they're going to hike. I think there's kind of a little bit more of uncertainty in terms of what this hike will look like. A lot of people, I'd say 25, but there's a possibility of 50. I think. And there could also be a possibility that they don't raise at all. I think
whoa! Don't start everybody's week off with hope. That's the last thing we need.
Well, I think we have to kind of price in a little bit of everything, and that's probably what the market's doing right now as we speak. But at the end of the day, Sean, I think this is where we've come to 2023. We've finally gotten here, and this is the year where we have a lot of questions to answer, right? It's like last year is pretty easy to determine, hey, we were going to get another hike. It's just a matter of how much. Now we're in the world of, we can see inflation's cooling. We can see, the markets are changing, and it just generally, we have to kind of pay attention to the Fed a little bit differently than we did before. And the matter of what is their kind of, hint towards, hey, we're going to keep everything flat. We're going to ride it out for a little while until we see this, or, kind of the positioning of, are we going to actually cut rates at any point? I think we'd have to see a lot of economic pain to see that come through, but it's just something to keep in mind. We're going through a change.
I can't believe it. We're talking about it. Probably means some months off, but I mean, guys, that's a first. That's a first. And I told you guys coming into this year, good news only. And we're starting to think that there's a possibility that there might be good news, which it's a very trauma based response here. But I'm excited about it. So let's talk. Okay, so we've got PCE coming out, which is a sort of not as exciting version of the CPI, but still gives us a lot of information and is like a leading, or like it gives us indications. Yeah, exactly. And it gives us indications that the CPI, like for a time period that the CPI like won't give us for several weeks. So that is exciting. So another big thing that's been in the news and sort of out of the news, like to me, it seems like a bigger deal than maybe it is the debt debt ceiling limit. So the United States federal government has now run out of funds to pay for its daily activities, and the Treasury is using extraordinary measures to fund daily activities, and they can't really give an estimate of how long they can do that. And the solution is for Congress to raise the debt limit. Now, one of their daily activities is making payments on fixed income notes that they have sold to raise funds. I mean, that is what that's the debt in the debt limit. And do you see any like nerves or nervousness in the fixed income world that, like, in 2011, Moody and Standard & Poor's lowered the United States credit rating because of the fear of a standoff between the executive branch and the legislative branch about raising the debt limit? It seems like we're back here and maybe an even slightly more tense time. And do you see the fixed income market reacting to it now, or do you think they will at some point in the future, or are people basically just assuming that there's going to be a coming together between the two parties? Wow.
Yeah.
Question.
No, Sean, so I think it's a great thing to talk about. At the end of the day, we kind of talked about this a little bit last week, just offline, really, as something that we thought was something that could be concerning. And I think really what I see in the fixed income market is this is not a particular concern quite yet. But at the end of the day, what happened here, just to give everyone a little bit of background on the nuts and bolts here, is the Treasury itself, is kind of engineered a way to delay us hitting the debt ceiling. So every time the U.S. government, issues a bond, for example, right, there's a lot of investors that come in and buy it. There's only so much debt that is actually allowed in the law, which we call a debt ceiling. And once we hit that number, we're not able to issue more debt at the end of the day. That's the reasoning behind that. And if we are not able to have the cash to pay off the debts, essentially, running at a fiscal, we're actually not running a fiscal deficit, we're running a fiscal surplus, then there might be the way to reduce that debt. At the end of the day, though, that's not happening, obviously. I think we could all know that. So the solution is, in most approaches, is going to be to actually raise the debt ceiling. And like you alluded to earlier, 2011, that was a big point of contention because you had a legislative, House and Senate, I believe, as well, that were not in the same, path as obviously during the Obama administration. It was more of a
very similar sort of
dynamic that we have right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So that can work well for markets when we have kind of like lack of big changes happening in the government. That's good for markets in that sense. But when it comes to debt ceiling talk, it's never great. And equities tend to get more worried quickly about this approach than the fixed income market. I think the fixed income market's kind of procrastinating their reaction to this, to be perfectly honest with you, because that new timeline of when this needs to be done by, based off of what Janet Yellen and the Treasury have kind of done to engineer a delayed debt ceiling hit, would be June is when we're really going to come to a day of reckoning in a sense.
It's that long. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I thought we were a couple weeks away.
So we were, if we didn't make those changes that Janet Yellen and the Treasury did change. But at the end of the day, it could happen quicker if they issue more debt in a more quick fashion. So it's all estimated, right? But at the end of the day, where do we hit that debt ceiling? That's where it's going to be key for that debt ceiling to be elevated, so there's actually the ability to issue more debt. And the thing is that debt that is issued pays the old debt. That's kind of how it all ends up working, right? So
yeah, I know. It reminds me of my 20s.
And I think generally, the way the market treats U.S. debt is the risk-free rate. That's actually the way it's denoted. And it kind of actually, if you take Finance 101, that's the thing that they talk about is the risk-free rate is, the U.S. Treasury debt, essentially. That's the risk-free rate is what the Fed sets. And if we don't have the ability to be the risk-free,
it's our social fabric is that's what holds together the concept of money at this point, right?
I mean, it holds together almost everything because everything's based off of, like, even in the world of mortgages, right? Like, we think about mortgage-backed securities. Ginnie Mae is backed by the U.S. government in terms of its full faith and credit, right? So that's one thing that's backed by it. And then also Fannie and Freddie are like implicitly backed by the U.S. government. So how does that impact them at all? If it does, that's one thing. But on top of that is just international, like, bonds and even corporate bonds and everything like that. They all kind of answer to one main risk-free rate, and then everything up top of that is just credit risk. So when you introduce credit risk to the U.S. government, that's kind of messes everything up a little bit. So that's kind of the ultimate, truth be told moment is what's going to happen with the debt ceiling, and how long can kind of keep the party going in a sense. So that's how it ends up looking, and how quickly we get an answer is very up to the politicians that are up in Washington, arguing about this stuff. And at the end of the day, it becomes a negotiating factor, and the idea is hopefully no one uses that to stall, the debt ceiling rate, like, raises through different negotiations based off of different parties, wants or needs and everything like that. So it's a mess. It's a political mess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so we got some time to before it really starts hitting. And it's just something we should keep an eye on. It sounds like. So yeah, like you said, not a huge week. PCE will be fun. Hopefully it'll come in nice and low, provide that extra boost of confidence to the fixed income markets. And we're really just by this time next week, you and I are chatting on the 30th. And then the 2 days after that is the next Fed meeting. So we'll be waiting on tenterhooks about that. Why don't you tell everybody out there about the new lock exception policy, the pricing exception policy, where to find that, and the sort of rationale behind that.
Yeah, so everyone should have received an email on Friday this past week. So I really recommend anyone to review that. It's also being found in Workplace / the Knowledge Library. At the end of the day, it's something that everyone should do a quick read through, because it affects, if you're a loan officer, really anything that you are requesting in terms of, like, pricing exceptions or even post-lock pricing exceptions. This says, all the questions answered in terms of what the policies are, and it kind of sets everything in stone, as well as, where are you sending any sort of pricing exception requests to. So, I definitely reach out to Todd or, even Gil if you have any questions on the exact part of requesting the pricing exception. But at the end of the day, this is actually, policy that a lot of the executive team and even myself were working towards, to make sure that we have something set in stone so everyone can follow that, as needed. So please read that. Please review that.
I posted that in the comments of this video as well, so you guys can check it out there. It's in your inbox. It's also in Workplace with a quick search. Yeah, and it's great to have that set in stone. There's nothing better than clear expectations. So thanks for putting that together. Yeah, guys, well, that's it for this week. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments. Austin and myself will be happy to answer those, and look forward to catching up next week and getting stoked on maybe we should, like, pay-per-view the Wednesday comments by Mr. Powell or something like that. We should have, like, a watch party.
Yeah, it's like Pacquiao Mayweather, Jay Powell.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest event of the season. Well, we'll talk about it offline. Thank you, Austin, as always, for your time. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Let us know if you have any questions, comments in the chat, and we'll see y'all next week. Go lock some loans.
Thanks, guys. See you.